Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I hope you're all having a great start to your week. It's been a busy week so far, at least for me. So I hope you're all having a great start to your summer. Feels like we're in the middle of summer, but at the same time, it feels like it already, you know, I don't know, just began. I can't even talk yet. Oh, thanks for saying hello already in the comments. Appreciate all of you watching today. I have a great giveaway for one lucky viewer who is watching and commenting and giving me those great emojis, all of those things, somehow engaging with the post today. That's all you have to do to be automatically eligible to win today's gift from Sulky. It is a brand new machine embroidery design called Sun Sand Sea. This is the machine embroidery design. So as you can see, it's in the cross stitch style. But the happy thing is that your embroidery machine does all of the work of all of those tiny little cross stitches for you. So I love the look of machine embroidery cross stitch, but as you know, it is different from the look you get from hand done cross stitch. And so I'm going to be talking to you today about doing all of this cross stitch by hand, whether it's counted cross stitch or stamped cross stitch, which is really cool. I love stamped cross stitch because you actually don't have to count anything. And I tend to lose my place and things like that. So I'm going to be talking about that today because even though we love machine embroidery and we love our embroidery machines, over the summer, we do a lot of traveling, right? We get out in our cars, we take road trips, hopefully we get on some planes, maybe even take a cruise, stuff like that. And we want to occupy ourselves, keep our, minds busy and all of those good things. So taking some sewing on the go is always a great idea, especially if you're on a long road trip. So I like to do a handwork project, whether it's a little cross stitch project or a little bit of hand embroidery, because quite honestly, otherwise I don't have those big chunks of time to do a lot of hand sewing. But when we're in the car or on the plane, it gives us a great opportunity to keep our hands busy, follow a pattern, and make a little something cute in the process. So we're actually going to be talking about handwork today. And even if handwork isn't your sort of craft of choice, I think that you will find some tips and tricks today very useful. And then we're also going to talk about that machine embroidery version as well. So this design was created by a gal named Kate Johnson, and her site and her handle is U2More. And she creates adorable cross-stitch designs. And she created this one specifically for Sulky, if I could find it here. Here we go. Sun Sand Sea. So here is, let me make it a little bit larger for you. Here's what it looks like all done by hand. So you just can't get that look from your embroidery machine. We can come close, and we have with our machine embroidery version, but I love, using thicker threads and just the repetitive motion of cross stitching. It's really meditative. You don't have to worry about switching up different, stitches like you do with hand embroidery. And I'm going to give you some tips about using the thread as well as changing up the thread colors if you so desire. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And the hand version, this one I'm showing you here, hold on, let me make it smaller again so you can see me. The hand cross stitch version is a free chart at sulky.com. So all you have to do is go to sulky.com, or you can click directly on the link for the free cross stitch chart in the description of today's post. I have mentioned everything in that post that we're going to be talking about today. So if you're not seeing the whole description, click on the See More button. It will all pop out and you'll have direct links for all the products and freebies and everything I'm talking about today. So the Sun Sand Sea cross stitch chart, the hand cross stitch version of this pattern is absolutely free at sulky.com. All you have to do is add it to your cart, go through the checkout process. It will say $0. And then once you have checked out, it will go into your Sulky account and you can retrieve it there and easily download it. When you download it, you're going to get an instructional PDF with the intended color chart from the designer, as you see here, using our great Sulky 12-weight cotton petites thread. And you will also get the pattern in color and in black and white. So some cross stitchers like to work from the digital rendering of the pattern. You know, they have a tablet or an iPad or something, and they bring up the PDF and they follow the cross stitch chart digitally. Or you can print it out and follow along for your counted cross stitch version. Or you can print it out onto Sulky Stick and Stitch Stabilizer, which is a water-soluble, printable stabilizer sheet. And that's how you can do the stamped cross stitch. So we will get to that momentarily, but I will take care of a little bit of business first. And we've got some questions already. Let's see. Is there a special mystery box coming up? I think I heard about the Christmas mystery box coming soon. Yes. Okay, so I'm really excited about this one because we're celebrating Christmas in July, of course. You've probably seen some emails come through from, other companies, and lots of people like to do Christmas in July, right? I've even seen some Christmas things popping up in the craft stores and things like that because it's a great time to start thinking about your holiday makes. As sewers, crafters, quilters, we need all the time we can get to prepare for all the gifts and wearables and home decor that we want to create. We can't, start in December and, hope to get everything done, even though sometimes we have to do that anyways. So we're going to try to get a head start as well. And in a week or so, I'm going to be bringing you some really fun Christmas designs, Christmas patterns, holiday-themed motifs, things that you can use to inspire your makes for the holiday season. And the reason I bring that up is because our mystery box this summer is going to be Christmas in July, and it's going to contain so much more than we have ever put into a mystery box. This is like a mega mystery box, and it's going to hopefully inspire all of, your holiday thinking, your holiday projects. We're even throwing in some exclusive new patterns and tutorials that you will not be able to find elsewhere, and some supporting materials for you so you can use your mystery box in a variety of ways. And I will definitely tell you more about it when it's available. It's going to be a couple of weeks, but it's going to be worth it. So I'm glad you're already thinking about it, because I'm just so excited about this mystery box. It's unlike any of the others we have done, and I just think you're really going to love it. So thanks for that question, because it allowed me to give you a little bit of a sneak peek, which is fun. Erlene says, I'm not ready for Christmas yet. I know. I can't even remember what store I was at over the weekend, and they had 2 aisles of Halloween stuff. And I just thought to myself, it is way too early for that. Do I really have to start thinking about costume making and, all of that stuff? And I guess I do if I have any chance in getting, 3 kids' costumes ready in time for Halloween and school parties and all of that fun stuff. It just sneaks up on you, but it still feels like it's a little soon to be thinking about all of that. But I will say I do appreciate it, because it kind of gets my creative juices flowing. And I'm like, oh, thank God for the reminder, because October will be here before we know it. And then it's the holidays, and then And then we'll be dreaming about summer again, I guess. Christine says, I love Christmas. Yes. And see, Joan says, I just bought a Christmas embroidery design. Gotta get busy. Exactly. All right. When you're sewing, the sooner the better. It's so true. It's so true. All right. So I also wanted to let you know that we have an awesome sale happening at sulky.com right now. We have 35% off our stabilizer assortments. These are really great if you need to stock up your sewing room for these upcoming holidays that seem so far away, but they are going to be upon us before you know it. You can stock up on assortments. So we have a variety of them. There's a quilter's assortment that contains a bunch of stabilizers that are great for quilting. We've got some beginner embroidery, well, not really beginner, but like embroidery essentials stabilizer packs, which are really great because you get a tear away, a cutaway, a wash away, you know, the basics that you really need to have on hand to be prepared for a lot of different projects. So it's a good time to stock up because 35% off is an amazing deal. So be sure to check that out at sulky.com. And I'm going to be talking about a few stabilizers today as well. So you might as well grab up an assortment and save a bunch of money because it's almost like getting, you know, one entire roll of stabilizer for free when you grab up one of those assortments, especially at that great deal. All right. Another thing I wanted to make sure that you're all aware of, and you probably are by now if you have been watching So What for a long time, but I wanted to make sure everyone's aware of our London tour that's happening in November. Speaking of Christmas, it's going to be Christmas time in London, and we are going to be going to the Christmas markets. We are going to be going to Downton Abbey locations. We're doing a Harry Potter exhibit. We are shopping at Liberty of London Fabrics. I mean, that to me is worth it right there. Just saying. We do have only a couple of spots left on the tour. So if you are considering it, now is the time to give them a call and get registered. Because once the tour closes, we can't open it up for anybody. And the tour closes either when those last spots are taken or at the end of July. And the tour isn't until November, but they do close it early because, you know, they want to make sure everybody gets their passport, everybody gets, you know, acquainted with everybody else. I'm going to be making a special Facebook group for all of our tour mates so we can get to know each other prior to the trip. And then we can dump all our photos there and share them out. And because that's a lot of what these tours are about, especially for me, is getting to know all of you and making lots of new friends. You know, some of the craft tours trips that I have been on, all of them, I still have a text chain from all of us, you know, texting back and forth when we have free time and meeting up here and there. We all, you know, exchange Christmas cards over the holidays. And it's just a great time to meet your fellow crafters who just have the same, you know, likes as you. And I just can't explain enough what these tours mean to all of us and how fabulous they are. So I really encourage you to check out this tour. I put the link to it in the description of today's post. It's also in the chat already. So you can check it out and you can call Craft Tours and get on the list if you're able to. It's just going to be a fantastic time and a great way to start off your holiday season. We're also going to be making a commemorative project. So I'll be teaching a hands-on workshop where we're actually going to do a little bit of handwork, but don't be scared. It's not going to take forever. And it's going to be something special that you can take away from your trip and remember your travels. So, all right. Dream vacation. Yes. All right. Starting Christmas presents for girls in July. All right. So even though we just got done talking about Christmas, let's go back to our Fun in the Sun summer project. And again, this makes a great activity whether you're traveling or if you're just hanging out poolside or having a family barbecue and you're keeping your hands busy. You know, I have a couple of friends who are knitters and I never see them without yarn. It's kind of the same story when you're working on a handwork project because A, you want to get finished, and B, it's just something fun to do to pass the time, especially if you're out having fun in the sun. And this cross stitch design, honestly, it's not huge. It fits within an 8-inch diameter hoop. So you can really finish it much quicker than, you know, something maybe more intricate like a holiday design that you need to start now in the hopes that you will finish it by, you know, the holiday season. So let's start talking about the supplies that you're going to need. I mentioned the 8-inch hoop. If you're not aware, we sell these really great hand embroidery hoops at sulky.com. They are called German wooden embroidery hoops, and they're very sturdy. They're great quality. They're not like those splintery hoops that you find at the craft stores that, you know, if you over tighten, it's out of shape and it never goes back. These are really great quality. They're great for actually displaying your finished piece as well because of how pretty they are and how nice they are. So I encourage you to check those out. We have them in 6-inch, 8-inch, and 10-inch sizes. But for this project, the 8-inch hoop is sufficient. And if you're doing the counted cross stitch version, you'll want to get some Aida cloth. Aida cloth is sold by count. So if you're new to cross stitch, the count is how many holes or little openings per square inch you have across the fabric. So this particular design is meant for 14 count Aida cloth. That means there's 14 little holes, you know, for your needle per square inch. Okay. So that's kind of how you tell the difference. So if you get a really high count Aida cloth, like a 28 count, your cross stitches are going to be tiny and it's going to take forever, right? So this 14 count Aida cloth is pretty forgiving. I like this size because your cross stitches are a little bit bigger. You can use 2 strands of Sulky 12-weight cotton petites thread to give you great coverage throughout the design. And you'll be done before you know it. So I like that about it. Also, you'll need, of course, a hand sewing needle. And there's lots of schools of thought about what types of hand needles to use for cross stitch. I have heard some people use tapestry needles. Some people use chenille needles. Some people use needles that are just labeled hand embroidery needles as well. So the important thing is that your needle eye is large enough to accommodate the amount of thread strands you want to use in the design. So since we're using Sulky 12-weight cotton petites thread, which come on 50-yard spools, which is great for a design like this, we need a needle eye that's large enough to accommodate either 1 or 2 strands of that thread. So 1 strand of this thread is equal to 2 strands of traditional embroidery floss, which if you've ever worked with that, you know how difficult it is to use. It comes on the skeins, it's wrapped along the ends. You have to either wrap it onto something else or you have to just deal with a bunch of knots happening because you're separating the floss and all this stuff. Well, when you use Sulky 12-weight cotton petites, I thought I had some right next to me. It got covered up by everything I wanted to show you, I think. When you're using it, it comes on a snap spool. And when I say snap spool, that means the ends, both ends, gently snap open so that you can put your thread end in between this little slot so it stays nice and tidy, and then snap it shut. So that's what we mean when we say a snap spool. We also mean that it's this smaller size. All right, so because it comes on a snap spool, you can easily contain your thread, and it's great for traveling. You can throw it in a little zip bag and add it to your travel tote, and you're good to go on the road, to the pool, what have you, and do your handwork projects without dealing with these skeins and these knots and the separating of threads and all of that. So for this, it's recommended to use a size 24 handwork needle. And whether you like to use a thicker tapestry or chenille needle, if you have, a small count Aida fabric with the large holes, you can use a larger needle like a tapestry or a chenille needle. If you are going with a higher count Aida fabric, you'll want a more slender needle so that you're not creating, you're not making larger holes that, will kind of show through, your thread isn't covering them as well. Does that make sense? All right. So we also need our beautiful threads, of course. Now, I did mention the Aida fabric, and you really only need the Aida fabric if you're doing counted cross stitch, meaning you're going to read your pattern and count how many squares across and down to create each cross stitch, right? If we're doing stamped cross stitch, we can choose different fabrics. So I'll get to that momentarily. But for now, we're going to talk about the counted cross stitch version. So these are the pretty colors of 12 weight cotton petites thread that are recommended by the designer because we're talking about sun, sand, sea, surf, all of that good stuff. So we've got these beautiful blues and some yellow for the sunshine and some neutral colors to kind of sprinkle in the design as well. One of the blue colors is a blendable thread. And you've heard me talk about these forever as well. I really don't know what happened to the two thread spools I had right next to me. At any rate, the blendables thread is randomly dyed every 2.5 to 5 inches across the thread length in these big, beautiful skeins, and then it is wound onto the spool. So unlike variegated thread, which is more methodically dyed, right? It's not randomly dyed. Variegated thread is going to have the same color pattern across the thread length, whereas the blendables is totally randomized. So when you're doing something like cross stitch or hand embroidery or hand quilting or even machine quilting using the blendables, you don't get that same pattern across your design. You're going to get a beautiful blended look with the color. So one of the thread spools in this design is that blendables. It's the blue at the top. You can see it has shades of dark to light blue. Really, really pretty. And I'm going to show you some new packs of 12 weight blendables and some new colors that we have now at sulky.com. So you could, in fact, choose all blendables for your cross stitch design and have a really unique, almost tie-dye effect to the entire design if you wish. All right, so we're going to select our threads, 6 threads similar to these, or you can go with all blendables, and I'll show you those new packs in a moment. We've got our Aida cloth, we've got our hoop, and we have our hand sewing needle. All right. So as you can see, there's also a needle minder on this fabric. So does everyone know what a needle minder is? I used to have one right here. A needle minder is a little magnet that you can place on your work. So you place the decorative part of the magnet on the top, and then there's another magnet that goes on the back of it so that it stays in place. They come in all kinds of cute motifs. We have tons of them on the Sulky website. They're so adorable, like I cannot even choose which one I like the best. We have sewing themed ones, cat themed ones, summer themed ones. There's one that's a little camper. It's so cute. Love it. So you put this on your work so that when you need a break, when you need to massage your arthritic thumbs like I do, when you need, to walk away from the project for a little while, all you have to do is put your needle on the needle minder, and it's magnetic, right? So it sticks there, and you don't have to stick your needle into the project at another point, like some of us always do, like I have done right here. It's much safer for your project longevity, plus it's super cute. So as you can see, she also has a needle minder here and totally recommends that. If you like to do a lot of handwork projects, you don't have to use it just for something in the hoop either. So check them out at sulky.com. You will fall in love with all of these adorable needle minders. So either print out your free chart. You can print it in color or in black and white. I love printing it in color because then I have a visual clue for when I need to change my thread. If you do print it in black and white because you're conserving ink, that's usually why I print in black and white. I highly suggest you go over certain parts of it with a highlighter or even a colored pencil or marker so that you do have that visual clue for when to change your thread colors. I just sometimes get into that meditative process of hand sewing, and all of a sudden I'm on a different part of the design and I've completely forgotten, and I have to kind of rip out some stitches, which is kind of a bummer. All right, so print out your pattern if you're going to be doing the counted cross stitch, or you can pull it up on your tablet or computer if you have that next to you. You can even look at it on your phone. I find for me that's a little bit too small with all the small cross stitches to look at, but you can also zoom in as well. It's kind of neat to follow a chart digitally because you have that zoom in option, right? And I don't know about you, but I need that more and more these days. Zooming in. All right. So then all there is to it is to count over and down based on your pattern and start stitching your cross stitches. It's just one stitch over and then one stitch across. You're making an X. That's all we're doing here. It is recommended, though, to go all one direction and then all the opposite direction across like a row, let's say. That is so that, let's say it's the left side of your X, right? We want that to always go under the right side of our X or vice versa. So if you're doing a big chunk of like the sun portion of the design, let's say, and you have some where the left cross is going over, somewhere the right cross is going over, it just can look a little bit messy or a little bit muddled. So you do want to be cognizant of that, of which side of the X is going under the other side. Does that make sense? You can tell I don't have the, let's say, technical words for cross-stitching down, right? If there is a technical term for that. But at any rate, just be aware of that. Other than that, cross-stitching is really simple. You've got to count across and down, and then make sure that your stitches are going in the same direction, meaning the movement of your stitch is the same for each one. And at the beginning and end, you can leave long thread tails on the back of the work, and then thread your needle through that thread tail and put it through a few stitches along the backside and then trim it off. And then you don't have any knots. Or to start off, you can do a pin stitch, which is where you start at one corner. Let's say this is your cross stitch hole or square, right? You start at one corner and go to the center, then come back through the other corner and go through the center, and then continue your cross stitch. And then your next stitch that goes over that little center pin stitch is hiding it. And that creates your knot and secures your thread at the beginning of the stitch. If you would like a video tutorial on that, on our YouTube channel, we have an intro to cross stitch video series. And the starting and stopping of the stitches is really best explained on video there. So you can go to that playlist on our YouTube channel and see how to create that pin stitch to start your stitch. I think it's a really smart way of doing it. It makes the back of your work look really, really clean. And, let's face it, not a lot of people are going to see the back of the work, but especially if you're using a white or a light colored Aida fabric, you don't want the back of your work looking all messy, because sometimes you'll have show through on that depending on, where you're hanging your finished piece or how you're using it. So just keep that in mind. And just like that, you can have your finished piece. You can either create some hoop art out of it. So you would keep it in the hoop. You can add some decorative ribbon. You'll want to finish the back side of your hoop as well. Sometimes people like to cut a piece of sulky felty and actually either glue it to the back of the piece so that the raw edges of your Aida fabric are all concealed. Or what I love to do is we have this 1/8 inch double-sided basting tape. It's like a double-sided crafting tape, and it's really nice and strong. You can apply that to the inner hoop ring and then just stick your felty or your backing fabric right to the double-sided basting tape, and it creates a nice finish without having to use a permanent glue. Because then when you want to switch it up or you want to use your hoop again, you can simply remove the felty, take off the double-sided basting tape, give it a little wipe with a soft cleanser, and then you can reuse your hoop again. Whereas if you hot glue it or something like this, you have a permanent piece. And if you ever get tired of your design or want to switch it up for a different holiday, you'll have to buy another hoop and all of that stuff. So that double-sided basting tape is really great for a lot of different projects, but I also love it for hoop art. So check that out. That's at sulky.com as well. So you can also take your finished cross-stitch piece and pop it out of the hoop. And instead of adding a backing fabric, you can add a protective layer of sulky stabilizer, which will also seal the stitches a little bit. So if you have woven your thread tails through the back of the work, you don't have any knots, but you still have kind of some pokey edges or some thread ends, it's nice to seal those up and make sure that nothing is going to go anywhere. Nothing's going to get snagged. Let's say you finish your cross-stitch piece and you want to put it on the pocket of a tote bag, like applique it on there or sew it on there. It's nice to finish up those edges and make sure they're not going to snag with repeated use. If you run into something with your tote bag, if you slide your hand over it and your ring snags those threads, super bummer. So to avoid that, you can use some Sulky Tender Touch Stabilizer, which is a really nice, lightweight, fusible, cutaway permanent stabilizer. We use it a lot for machine embroidery on knit fabrics like t-shirts or baby onesies, things like that, because it has this really silky, nice feel to it. And it doesn't change the hand of your fabric. So it doesn't add a bunch of weight to it. It keeps it nice and soft. So on the back side of your Aida cloth, you can cut a piece of Sulky Tender Touch slightly larger than your design perimeter. Use pinking shears or a wavy rotary blade. That just helps the Tender Touch kind of stay in place over time as well. Sometimes when you have that straight edge, the edge, could curl up if you didn't fuse it all of the way, things like that. But using a wavy blade or pinking shears really helps fuse those edges down, and just fuse according to the manufacturer's directions. Sulky would recommend a low to medium temp iron. Just fuse it lightly until it adheres to the back of the project. And then all of those thread tails and all of those embroidery stitches are nice and protected and also concealed. So then if you use it as, hoop art, you don't need to add that piece of felty. You probably still want to make sure that the raw edges of your Aida fabric are stuck to the back of the inner hoop ring. So using that double-sided basting tape to just stick it down You could even cover it with a piece of ribbon. You could also serge or zigzag finish the edges and then pop it back in the hoop, centering your design, and then you can hang it up for everybody to see. So it's a really great way to just preserve all of the time and energy that you put into all those stitches and make sure that it's going to last a good while. So I mentioned that we have some new 12-weight cotton blendables petites at sulky.com. We've got some really great colors and some great assortments. And I am going to refer to my cheat sheet, which is the website at sulky.com, because they have such cute names and I want to tell you all about them. Let's see. So I'm really highlighting this color today. It's a brand new color. Like I said, we, added a bunch of colors to the Blendables line. So lots more to choose from now. And this is part of the all-terrain collection, which is an assortment of 6 of the Blendables cotton petites, 6 spools for only about $10. So a great deal. The all-terrain collection has, designs for basically all terrains. I know, it's as simple as that. So let's say you have, grass, desert, tundra. So if you're working on a design or working on a nature quilt, something like that, this is a great collection for it. This is one of the threads in it, which is called Seaside. And the reason I'm showing this off to you is because I thought it would be a perfect addition for our Sun, Sand, Sea cross-stitch design. You could use this blendable color instead of the plain yellow for the sun, for the lettering, this type of thing. And again, you'd have this almost watercolor look to your cross-stitch, or a sort of tie-dye looking, look for your cross-stitch as well. Also part of this collection with Seaside is Glacier, which is that blue and white color at the top. The Seaside, of course, which is the beautiful orange, yellow, little bit of bluish green running through it. We also have Cactus, Jade Forest, Bluegrass, and Caribbean. So these are for all of those great locations and moods that you're trying to create with your projects. Also, I love this collection. It's called Food and Wine. So all of our great designs, we have some really great cross-stitch collections for different camping phrases. And one of them is something like, oh my gosh, now I can't think of it. It's about, drinking coffee and camping and, how we need caffeine in the morning. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. But at any rate, I kind of thought of this one for that as well. But it's called Food and Wine, and the colors in this collection are strawberry daiquiri, passion fruit, merlot, grape wine, lime sherbet, and fresh butter. So it's for all of your food and wine themed embroideries and cross-stitch designs. And of course, just a beautiful array of colors for lots of different projects as well. Let's see, what is this one? I have to refer to my cheat sheet here. This is our Southern Fair collection. So this one has oranges, tans, reds, purples, and blues. And the threads in this collection would also work really well for the Sun, Sand, Sea collection, because you've got some blues, purples, some oranges, some yellows, and you could bring all of those in for a really beautiful piece. So this one, the Southern Fair, has eggplant, shrimp, rhubarb, ice, peach parfait, and butterscotch. So the thread names are making me hungry. I hear ya. So cute. I love it. And then this one is called New Baby. So I love these assortments because if you are sewing for a new baby, you're making a quilt or you're doing a hand embroidery design and you just don't know what threads to use, or you want an assortment to choose from. Maybe you don't know the baby's gender yet, so you want to, incorporate a lot of these soft pastels. It's really great to purchase up one of these assortments, and they're named so appropriately to make it easy for you to say, oh, this is the new baby collection. It's probably going to work with all these pastels that I've purchased in fabrics, etc. So this one has all these great colors called Baby Soft, Princess Garden, Gentle Hues, Willow, Heather, and Melon Soft. So all of these really great pastels. This would be really great for a spring garden looking embroidery or quilt. So lots of different options now for new 12-weight cotton blendables threads at sulky.com, as well as these fun assortments that are around $10 or $11 for all 6 spools. So really affordable to grab up a pack. So I thought it would be great for you to check those out when you grab up your Sun Sand Sea cross stitch. So I do want to get to the stamped cross stitch version. And the only thing different about it is that we are going to print our design onto Sulky Stick and Stitch Stabilizer. You've seen me use this a million times for transferring hand embroidery designs. I use it for so many different purposes. It's water soluble, so it's going to wash away after all of our cross stitching is complete. And it's a way to transfer our design so we can use any fabric to showcase the cross stitch design. We don't have to use the Aida fabric. I do, however, recommend a nice, stable woven fabric. We don't want to be doing cross stitch on a knit. Our cross stitches would just get out of shape and be really unwieldy. So a nice, stable woven fabric, a linen or even a quilter's cotton would work. If you're using a quilter's cotton, I would probably add some interfacing to it, depending on the weight of quilter's cotton you get, but a nice linen fabric would look really pretty. Things like this. You can even do cross stitch on denim if you're doing stamped cross stitch. So it makes it a lot easier to manage the pattern, in my opinion. You don't have to do any of the counting, and you don't have to make sure that your cross stitches are lining up exactly in a row. I mean, they still will look that way. So I think you'll really enjoy this version because you take your stick and stitch, run it through your printer so that it's going to print on the fabric-like side. Print either the black and white or color version of the pattern. I recommend printing the color for the same reasons I said earlier. But again, if you print in black and white, give yourself some kind of visual clue for when you need to change colors throughout the design. Because especially with the stamped cross stitch, you will get into the repetitive motion of it and forget about changing your thread colors. At least that's what happens to me. So at any rate, print it out on a sheet of stick and stitch. Then you'll trim around your design, leaving a little bit of a border. And then you'll put that sticker that you just created right on the fabric right side. And it does 2 things. It allows you to follow the pattern without counting. It transfers the design, and it stabilizes the fabric a little bit for you as well, because after all, it's a stabilizer. So it makes it nice and flat whether you're using a hoop or not using a hoop. Let's say you're putting this on the back of a denim jacket. You probably can't get that into a hand embroidery hoop. But when you're adding that stick and stitch, it makes the fabric nice and stable for you, so you don't even have to use a hoop for a thicker fabric like that. So this is a stamped cross stitch that I am still working on. And I know many of you are going to laugh and get a little kick out of this because it's a Halloween design from last Halloween. And didn't I say that Halloween is almost upon us again? And here I am with my stamped cross stitch. But in all seriousness, the only reason I haven't finished it is because it became a sample for some shows that we were doing out there. And, people pick it up, they take a look at it, they try their own hand at it. So it's really not my project anymore, if you know what I mean. It has been used and abused a little bit. And also, we did a little experiment to show people how the stabilizer washes away. So part of my design is now gone because we have added some water to it and it has disappeared in the water. So you can see next to the cat here, and there's a little bit of, water right here. See how the stabilizer just washes right away after your stitching is complete. So nobody has to know that you use this stamp cross stitch method. It washes away completely. So now my pattern is a little bit compromised. I probably could still finish it, but this has really become more of an example now of what to do, what not to do, and how to remove that stabilizer as well. So you print your sticker, you'll do all of your cross stitches through all layers, and then when your whole design is complete, you'll rinse it under warm or lukewarm running water. It's important that the water is running off of the project and that you're not soaking it, especially right side up soaking it. I have found when I soak something right side up, the stabilizer will lift away from the fabric and it could migrate somewhere else. And depending on your ink level in the stabilizer, it could transfer some of that ink to another part of your project, and we don't want that. We also want to make sure that the water is, you can dissolve it in pretty cold water as well. It's just going to take a little bit longer. So if you're finding that it's not going anywhere, increase the temperature of your water a little bit. And a little bit of agitation also helps dissolve that stabilizer. So if you have an area of some denser thread, let's say it's a hand embroidery design with a satin stitch fill or something, and the stitches are a little bit dense there, you might want to add a little bit of agitation. Just run your finger over the top of it under the water, or if you have one of those kitchen sprayers, those work really good because typically the water pressure is a little bit better on those. And you can just run your kitchen sprayer over the top, making sure that the water is flowing off of the project until it is totally gone. And then let it dry flat on a pretty absorbent towel. What you can also do is put it flat on the towel and then roll the towel slightly to get rid of the excess moisture, and then unroll the towel and just kind of flatten it with your hands. Then when it's completely dry, you can give it a press. And I always just rule of thumb, I try to keep my iron away from my beautiful sulky threads if I can avoid it, right? There are some times where you simply have to iron over the threads. But I like to just iron around the pretty threads, making sure my project is nice and flat. And then you can finish it as desired. Maybe you still want it as hoop art, even though it's not Aida fabric. Maybe you want to turn it into a tote bag. Maybe, I always start with a much bigger fabric piece when I'm doing any kind of handwork, because then I can use it for a lot of different things. And while I'm sewing, I might change my mind. Oh, I don't want to make a tote bag anymore. I want to turn this into a pocket for something, or what have you. So that gives you a little bit more room to groove if you start out with a much bigger fabric piece than you need in the end. And I also wanted to mention that we have this great kit at sulky.com. This is another cross stitch design. And this is our spring cross stitch pillow, but it has these same beautiful yellow and blue and white sulky cotton petites thread in the kit. It also comes with this great pillow blank. which is specifically made so that it opens up so that you can get to the back side, do all of your cross stitching, and then you have this beautiful pillow at the end. So I thought this kit could also work so well with our Sun, Sand, Sea cross stitch design. So when you purchase this kit, which incidentally, it is on sale right now, you get the pillow blank, you get an embroidery hoop, you get the pack of hand needles, and you also get 6 spools of sulky cotton petites in colors that could totally work for the Sun, Sand, Sea cross stitch design. You might want to throw in a couple more blendables on top of that just to have some more fun with it. But if you grab up this kit, which again, on sale for a great deal, you can create this beautiful springy looking design because the design will come with purchase of your kit. And then you can also add the Sun, Sand, Sea cross stitch design free chart to your cart. And you have 2 options for what to put on your pillow. And then everything's packaged together for you at a great price. So I thought that was worth mentioning because it works so well with the design we're talking about today. And don't forget, if machine embroidery is more your style, you can do this design cross-stitch style using your embroidery machine. You just have to grab up the Sun, Sand, Sea machine embroidery design at sulky.com. And this one is digitized for 40 weight thread. So your thread is not going to be as thick and as pronounced as it would be when you're doing handwork, but you still get this really beautiful cross stitch look at a fraction of the time it takes to do it by hand. And so then you can enjoy it as well. If you don't, if you're not going on a long road trip or if you don't have all of those handwork supplies readily available to you, you can have a little bit more instant gratification by using the machine embroidery design. And this happens to be our freebie today for one lucky viewer who is watching, commenting, giving me those great emojis. That's all you have to do to be eligible to win today's freebie. So I will choose a winner after about 24 hours, and you will be notified in such a way that you'll know that it's actually me contacting you. So that's all I'm going to say because I don't want those crazy imposters getting any ideas out there. All right. So Sun, Sand, Sea, super fun. I hope that you all, have a lot of inspiration now for some creative cross stitching, whether it's counted cross stitch, stamped cross stitch, or cross stitch by machine embroidery. Another thing I wanted to mention that not only are we using 40 weight rayon thread for the machine embroidery design, which is much thinner thread than the 12 weight cotton petites, but you'll want to choose a stabilizer for your fabric based on your fabric type and weight and based on the technique that you're doing. So since I don't know how you will all use the Sun, Sand, Sea machine embroidery design, I encourage you to check out our stabilizer selector tool at sulky.com. If you've never used this before, it is the best tool on the internet for machine embroidery. I work with stabilizer almost every single day, and I still think to myself, should I use this or this for this project? What's going to be the best? Oftentimes, I'll do a sample using both just so that I know for sure what's going to work, and so I can tell you all what worked for me. But I even use the stabilizer selector tool sometimes if I'm on the fence between one stabilizer or the other, or if I'm using a new fabric for the first time. This is a great starting point. So you'll find this reference tool at sulky.com. In the upper navigation on the website, you'll see resources and inspiration. When you click on that, it will then say reference tools. So go on to reference tools, and the first thing to pop up is going to be that stabilizer selection tool. Once you click there, you will see this box. So it's two drop-down menus. On the top one, you'll select your technique. So we would select cross stitch or machine embroidery, or sewing with knits or quilting or paper piecing, something like this, okay? Then we're going to select the fabric that we're using and we're going to click next. And it is going to spit out a selection of suggested stabilizers for our project and a little blurb about each one, because sometimes it's really cut and dry. It'll say, use Sulky Tear Easy. Great, using it. Sometimes it'll give us 2 or maybe even 3 options, because as you know, there are a lot of variables with machine embroidery and with the projects that we're doing. So read the little blurbs and then you can kind of decide which one is right for your project. And a lot of the times you'll get 2 suggestions, and the choice is really dependent on how you want to remove the stabilizer. So do I want to be able to tear it away, or do I want to wash it away? Let's say, for example. So you would choose based on that, right? But it's a really great resource if you get to the Sun Sand Sea cross stitch and you are going to use a denim jacket, let's say, and 40 weight rayon thread, and you really don't know, should I use Cutaway Plus or should I use Fuse and Stitch? Check out the stabilizer selection tool and see what it recommends for your project, and it'll give you a really great starting point, so that you have, you know, the best education at your fingertips and can make a really informed decision about that. And while you're at it, after you head on over to that selector tool and you know what stabilizers you can choose for your project, keep in mind that right now at sulky.com, you'll get 35% off of our stabilizer assortments. So again, a great time to stock up on the stabilizers that you use most in your projects. So definitely check those out at sulky.com when you grab up your free cross-stitch chart. And I would love to see what you all create, and whether you do the stamped version or the counted cross-stitch version. You can post your finished projects over on our Facebook group, which is called Sulky Stitch and Post. And I know a lot of you are already members because I recognize your names, because I go in there every day and check out the activity that's going on. A lot of people have just posted about their quilty wall hangings. So a lot of you are finishing those up from our May embroidery session. And it's really awesome to see everybody's take on that project. I absolutely love it. So that's a really fun place to kind of, you know, connect with fellow Sulky land, whether it's, you know, fellow customers or our support staff, customer service, and all of those great people behind the scenes. So I hope that I took care of most of the questions today. Lots of people saying that's a great stabilizer guide. Definitely get on that stabilizer selector tool. It's so helpful. So if you do have a question that I did not get to today, be sure to email us at info@sulky.com, or you can put your questions in the comments for today's post and we will get back to you there as well. Dawn has a great idea for using the Sun Sand Sea design. She says, this design would make fun placemats and pot holders or cute towels for the kitchen or bathroom. Great idea. Love it. I grew up with a mom who did counted cross stitch, and I have so many memories of like watching the Love Boat and stuff like that with my mom while she was on her doing her cross stitch and sitting next to her. And, you know, I always say I started out learning sewing by like osmosis because it was just always around me in different forms. So cross stitch is kind of a nostalgic thing for me, but I love that I can also do it on my embroidery machine now. So it makes quicker work of it. But again, I do love the look of that thicker thread, and I do love the feel of just hand sewing every once in a while too. So it's nice to change it up, get some different, muscles moving in our creative space. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Go grab your free cross stitch chart, check out the stabilizer sale, and also please go to crafttours.com and check out our London tour because I would love to meet you all. And I just simply can't wait. It's going to be fantastic. And we have some more tours coming up in 2024 and beyond that you might also be interested in. So be on the lookout for that as well. And have a really creative day, everyone. Thanks for joining me on another So What, and I'll see you next Tuesday.